वीडियो डेवलपमेंट बिजनेस मैडम एक ही साइड बैठो सब लोग ये इथे बसायचे मैडम दोनों स्टुडंट आहे आम्ही तरी अजून लॉग इन केलेलं आहे डॉक्टर अनुराधा मोहिते अरे मैडम ये कौन करेगा एडमिट ऑल आपको भी हो सके
सब मैं
एकदम
हम ही शुरू हम ही खराब सब कुछ है
आणलेलं का कुठे ठेवलेलं वो चाय के साथ बिस्किट चाहिए था तो मैं बोला इसको लाने के लिए बोला था किधर रखा हुआ है जेब में लेके घूम रही आज डॉक्टर के साथ दवा
तो बोला म्हटलं तुम्ही त्याला बोललो काय मी पण त्याला बोललो. बाकी
मीटिंग ये स्टार्ट किया
मैडम आपको बनाया है ना प्रेजेंटर मार्कर अटेंडी
मैं करती हूँ
नहीं होगा अभी होगा
ज्वाइन करने के लिए
नहीं आपका ज्वाइन है
नहीं
नहीं अभी क्या 10 बजे तक ही है ना बाद में कौन आना बाद में मैडम करेंगे मोबाइल पे उनको प्रेजेंटर मैडम आप ज्वाइन हुए क्या
आवाज कुछ आ रहा है कम किस साइड
मैडम के पीछे बैठे मोबाइल का और मैडम के पीछे बैठे अजून किती जण येणार आहे
आएंगे
हे नको लावू नाही दिसतात ते एकदम हे होतं
बाहर जाना पड़ेगा वो प्रेजेंटर उनको नहीं बनाया
क्या है उनका नाम
तुम्हें सोनी
नहीं
अभी पता नहीं है
उनको भेजा है ना मैडम लिंक?
हाँ वो 2-3 मिनट लगेगा।
है ना, ये आके क्लिक करो, ये क्लिक करो, क्लिक करो तो मेकअप प्रेजेंट म्हणजे त्याला ऍक्सेस सगळे मिळतील, म्हणजे स्क्रीन शेअर करायची असेल तर परत करू शकतो. करा.
Put your bag over there and come this side.
ये क्या मैडम?
हाँ
ना
try to fill up this side first. And then you can fill and go to that side. Otherwise fill up over here.
मैडम वो एडजस्ट करो, ये साइड में बैठो, इस साइड में बैठो. ये चला पसंद किया फटाफट. या साइड का पहिले
ये उसको आउटपुट कर रहे हो, ऐसा आप ही कर रहे हो। पूछो मैं कॉल करूँगा।
Please maintain silence. Start करना बाबा। कुछ प्रॉब्लम होगा तो मैं नहीं कर सकती। इसका माइक डिसेबल किया है और वो प्रेजेंटर का भी करना है।
अच्छा प्रेजेंटर है ना चला प्रेजेंटर आ गया ना माइक वीडियो कौन कर रहा है
प्रेजेंटर को क्या करना है, उनका अलाउ क्या है? प्रेजेंटर को अलाउ क्या है?
हाँ किया है। क्या नाम था उनका? कहाँ का? सेंटर में अलाउ किया है।
Don't talk.
Hello, am I audible?
Allow mic करो. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. The institution's Innovative Council of Education I'm Apik student at IIC. The speaker for today's session is Mr. Somil Rao. He is the co-founder of Work India, a technology-based marketplace for hiring blue and grey collar workers, which has more than 2.5 crore registered job seekers and 15 lakh companies hiring through the platform. Graduated as a computer engineer in 2016 from Mumbai University, ran a profitable t-shirt selling business briefly in college called Slapdash. Over 7 years in the startup ecosystem, gathered experience in software development, digital marketing, engineering management, planning and strategy, and growth. Currently, the supply growth head for Work India, handling a budget of rupees 18 lakhs per month, driving 12 lakh downloads per month on the Work India app. I request everyone to mute their audios and keep their videos on. Now I request Sir to begin with the lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Apeksha. Just a quick sound check. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes. Yes, you are on.
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone, for taking out the time to listen to me and giving me this opportunity to, present my thoughts. Thanks to the entire MGM faculty, dean, and everyone who found it, worthwhile to invite me for this particular session. Really appreciate it. I will present my screen and we'll begin with the session. Let me know when my screen is visible. Is the presentation visible?
Yes, visible.
Yes, visible.
All right. So this is the topic for today's discussion: lean startup and minimum viable product for business. Apeksha already was kind enough to introduce me, spoke a bit about my background, the same points I mentioned here on this slide. Like she mentioned, I'm a computer engineering graduate. I graduated in 2016 from Mumbai University. I'm currently a co-founder of Work India, which is a technology marketplace for hiring blue and grey collar workers. And I briefly ran a profitable business around t-shirt selling while I was in college. I have close to 7 years of experience now. And just something about me personally, I'm not very good at cracking jokes, but that's not going to stop me. I hope all of you have a good time. Let's begin. The basic contents of today's session are the points you see on the screen. Firstly, I'll briefly talk about why should you attend this session, what's in it for you. Then I'll cover what is a lean startup and how to go about building a minimum viable product. So first of all, why should you attend this session? I'd like to present a small case study around dental card. I'm sure everyone on the forum here is at least familiar with dental card, the website. So it was founded in 2014 by Dr. Vikas Agarwal and Sandeep Agarwal. It is now India's largest online dental marketplace, selling a wide variety of dental products. And Dr. Vikas Agarwal, interestingly, is a dental surgeon by profession. He graduated from Maulana Azad Institute of Dental Sciences, and he's the technical product expert and CEO of Dental Card. Now, why do I bring this up? Because I feel that a BDS graduate eventually starting and running an e-commerce business for dental products is an inspiring journey. However, we often dismiss such stories as outliers, as rare examples. We think that such individuals are special or not everyone can do what they did. We feel कि बॉस मैं तो ये नहीं कर पाऊंगा या मैं ये नहीं कर सकती. But that's not necessary. I admit entrepreneurship is risky. Starting up a business of your own is risky, and most people never take that risk on. For two reasons primarily. Number one, lack of resources. You would say, ki, Somil, I don't have the money, I don't have the manpower, I don't have the resources to even think of starting a business.
Samuel, Samuel, we are having a little difficulty in hearing you.
Okay. Sure. Shall I repeat some of the slides that I had covered?
Maybe one slide before this.
Okay.
No, not that back. No. A little further. Yeah, I think this is good. Yeah, this is good. This is good.
Okay, sure. I'll just hold the mic closer. Is this better? Am I audible now?
A little better. Yeah.
Okay. And also, perhaps I'll speak a bit slower so that
Yeah.
what I'm saying is
Maybe a bit louder and a little slow.
okay. Sure.
Thank you.
All right. So I'll just restart from the point of why should you attend this session? What's in it for you? And I was talking about the case study of Dental Card. I'm sure everyone on this forum is at least familiar with Dental Card. And it was founded in 2014 by Dr. Vikas Agarwal and Sandeep Agarwal. And it is now India's largest online dental marketplace, selling a wide variety of dental products. Interestingly, Dr. Vikas Agarwal is a dental surgeon by profession who graduated from Maulana Azad Institute of Dental Sciences. and he's the technical product and CEO of the organization. Now, why do I bring this up? Why do I talk about this case study of dental cart? Is because I believe that a BDS graduate eventually starting and running an e-commerce business for dental products is a very inspiring journey. Something not everyone does. However, we often dismiss such stories as outliers or as rare examples. We feel that such individuals are special and not everyone can do what they do. But my argument is that that is not necessarily true. Of course, I admit that entrepreneurship is risky. Even thinking about starting a business of your own involves a lot of risk. And most people don't do it for two reasons. Number one, lack of resources. You would say, Somil, I don't have the money or the manpower or the resources it takes to start a business of my own. Or you would say, I don't have the knowledge. I don't know how to start a business and how to run it. Now, of course, the first point, lack of resources, is a critical roadblock that I acknowledge. But at least lack of knowledge need not be something that will stop you. It is, after all, free of cost. And that is the objective of today's session, at least to share with you some knowledge that will help you in your journey later on if you decide to start up. So in summary, why should you attend this session? One, entrepreneurship is an inspiring yet risky journey. It requires both resources and knowledge. But if you acquire the knowledge needed to start a business, you will be ready to start up when the time comes and the resources are available. So I like to say I got 99 problems, but ignorance is not one of them. Just a quick sound check. Am I still clearly audible?
Yeah, you are.
So there was a bit of disturbance. I couldn't understand. Am I still audible for everyone?
Yes, you are on.
Okay, understood. All right, thank you. So I'll continue. Now that we have established the significance of this session, what is the importance of covering these topics, let's jump into it. The first point is about what is a lean startup? What does it even mean? What does the term even mean? But before that, before we jump into the definition of a lean startup, I would first like to talk about why do startups fail? What are the top problems that startup businesses face because of which they fail is what we'll talk about first. And then we will understand how does lean startup solve for it. So this is a summary of common reasons for startup failure. As you see on the top right, 34% or majority of the times startups fail due to lack of product market fit. Now, this term might be a bit unfamiliar to all of you, but no need to get intimidated. It's a very straightforward ideology, and I'll explain what product market fit means. Very simply put, if product is what you are offering and market is what the customers want, product market fit talks about the overlap between the two. Is there a match between your product's offering and your customers' requirements? Very simple. That is what we call as product market fit. If there is a mismatch, if what you're offering does not satisfy your customers' requirements, then you don't have product market fit. I'll explain this further with an example. Let's consider a hypothetical scenario. Let's say you're the next Elon Musk of India and you want to build a brand new electric car for India. And these are the top 3 features that you come up with for your Atmanirbhar electric vehicle. You say that my electric vehicle is going to be super fast. It's going to have a top speed of 280 kilometers per hour. It is going to have a super fast charging battery. And it is going to have a self-driving capability. With all of these decided, you go ahead, you build the car, you are super excited about it, and you're all set. You're very confident that you will sell at least 1 lakh cars in the first couple of months itself. You start advertising about your brand new car as well. And you spend crores of rupees on TV, newspaper, billboards. You advertise everywhere possible. But your car doesn't sell. You barely got half the bookings that you wanted. And the reality was very far from expectation. So what went wrong? What could possibly have gone wrong in this hypothetical scenario? So you're curious to know why your project is failing. And what you do is you talk to a potential customer, let's say Mr. Rajesh, who visited your showroom, but he did not buy your car. You ask him what changed, why did you change your mind? Why did you not buy the car? You came in interested, you came into the showroom, looked at the car, but you did not buy it. And he says the car is great, but it's of no use to me. Which is a very shocking revelation. You didn't expect that kind of feedback because you built such an amazing car and you would expect that people will immediately like it and purchase it. But that did not happen. So Mr. Rajesh talks about the problems that he sees with your car. The first thing he says, you talk about your car top speed being 280 kilometers per hour. But I drive in Mumbai traffic and the fastest I can go is 80 to 100 kilometers an hour. So your 280 kilometers per hour has no use for me. The second thing he says is, although your car battery charges very fast, but the range is not good. It only lasts about 100 kilometers. What if it discharges midway when I'm traveling somewhere? And the third thing is you say that your car has a self-drive functionality, but it costs close to 80 lakh rupees. Now, I would rather buy an affordable car and drive it myself than spend so much money and have a computer drive my car. which seems like a very reasonable argument, right? And that's when you realize that you've built a car that no one wants. You have failed your task successfully. So what did we learn? I have to admit, this was a bit of a silly example, but it was still an accurate depiction of failed product market fit. What your car offered was high top speed, fast charging, self-driving. But what your customers wanted was different. They were okay with average speed. They wanted long-lasting range, and they preferred affordability. So the point I'm trying to make here is that there are various ways in which a startup might fail. But one of the most sure shot ways to fail is to build a product or business that no one wants. So you might ask, what is the solution? You know, we agree to your point, Soumya, but what do we do about it? So the key idea is, before you commit millions of dollars and your time and energy in building and advertising a product, be sure that it actually fits the market's needs, which is literally the term product market fit, right? And then the next question comes up is, how do you achieve product market fit? So there are various ways of achieving it. There are various approaches in which you can achieve product market fit. But lean startup, the topic of today's presentation, is one of those methodologies. And that's what we will cover in today's session. I'll just pause here for a minute. I don't know if it's possible for, the attendees to share any questions with me, but I'll still take a pause for 1 minute. What we've covered so far is why should you attend this session, so that we can address the lack of knowledge problem when it comes to starting up a business. We talked about what is product market fit and how it is one of the top reasons for startups to fail. And we've established that lean startup is one of the approaches to solve for product market fit. Does anyone have any questions so far in the presentation?
It is so nicely explained that I didn't think anybody has any question. I can go ahead, sir.
Okay, sure. Thank you. I'll move on. So I'll start talking about the lean startup method in a little more detail. So the aim of this method is two things: eliminate wasteful practices and increase value producing activities. Now, of course, all of this sounds like a lot of jargon and complicated words, but it's actually very simple. And I'll explain how it works. In short, we want to chase customer validation first, rather than chasing perfection. Because that is a very common mistake entrepreneurs often make, that they would strive for perfection. They will make hundreds of thousands of changes to their business idea or to their product without checking whether this is what the customer wants. Hence, in the lean startup methodology, customer feedback becomes an integral part of the process. It ensures you don't invest time in designing features or services that your customers don't want. Another oversimplified summary of the lean startup method would be that it has two steps. Step number one, learn about the specific demands of your customers. So just like in the previous example, we learned that Mr. Rajesh cares more about affordability of his car than the self-driving feature of his car. So that is where we learned about the specific demand of our customer. That is the step number one that we need to do. And step number two is to try and meet that demand using the least amount of resources possible. Right? So for example, if I have solution number one as an option and I have solution number two as an option, I will pick that solution which takes the least amount of cost, time, effort. So instead of making very complicated plans that are based on a lot of assumptions, we rely on making constant adjustments, small adjustments, using what is called the build, measure, learn feedback loop. And I'll explain what this feedback loop is. It looks something like this. It is a cycle that goes from the first step of building to measuring to learning and then back to building again. And step zero, which is the first ever time that you come up with a product or an idea, you have to plan first. I'll explain each of these steps in more detail. So like I said, step zero is planning, where you formally write down what is your idea or hypothesis. What is that brand new business idea that you really want to try out in the market, you want to implement? Right? Step number one, after your plan is put down, after your hypothesis is ready, you have to build. And you first build a minimum viable product, which is also called MVP. Now, again, this will sound like a very complicated terminology, but it's not. What it means is the smallest and simplest possible version of your product or your business that will allow you to test your hypothesis. Step number two, after that, is measuring, which means simply you gather data and feedback to test your hypothesis. And step number three is learning, where your data will indicate one of two things. Either your hypothesis worked, in which case you keep what you built and you keep refining it further, you make it better and better. Or your hypothesis did not work, in which case you rethink your hypothesis and you build something new again. So when you measure, you gather data and feedback. And in the learn step, you realize whether your hypothesis is true or not. And based on that, you go back to the build step, where you either work on a new hypothesis or you continue improving on your current idea. And then this cycle continues. You keep building, measuring, and learning, keep coming up with new hypotheses, keep coming up with new ideas, keep coming up with improvements until your final product is ready. And that is what the build, measure, learn feedback loop means. What are some of the advantages of this approach? So this feedback loop is the crux of the lean startup methodology. So if there is only one takeaway that you have from this conversation, it should be this feedback loop. It should be understanding how build, measure, and learn feedback works, right? And what are the advantages of this feedback loop? First, you don't bet your resources on gut feelings and assumptions. You don't rely just on your instinct. You rely on a scientific approach of hypothesis, measurement, and learning. 3, at every step, you are validating what you have built with customer feedback. So the risk of building something that no one wants is lowered. And at any point, if your hypothesis fails, the next step after that is to build again. So you can course correct immediately. You don't have to wait too long or waste too much time or money behind a product that is not working. That is essentially the advantage of the build, measure, and learn feedback loop. Now to drive the point home, what we'll do is, let's consider the example of the Atmanirbhar electric car once again. Now we've come back from the dead and we will apply our learnings of lean startup on how to build an electric vehicle. Right? So as I mentioned earlier, step 0 is plan. What is the idea or hypothesis that we have? We write that down properly. So the first idea is that the Indian consumer wants a fast, self-driving, quickly charging electric car. Because those were the top 3 features of your electric vehicle, if you remember, right? So this becomes your hypothesis. What do you do after that? You have to build. Now, when you try to build something, now, since here we are talking about the example of a car, right? Now, building a car is a tricky thing to do. It's not straightforward. It's not an overnight task, right? But remember, the idea of a minimum valuable product is that it is the simplest, fastest way for you to validate your hypothesis. It is not your final product. So if you think about it, our hypothesis is that Indian consumers want fast, self-driving, quickly charging electric vehicles. In order to test that hypothesis, we don't even need to build a car to start with. We'll first build a survey to understand the preferences and priorities of Indian car owners. Now, I have to admit that it sounds a bit ridiculous that अरे यार सोमिल कार बनाना है हमको, हम सिर्फ सर्वे बना के कैसे काम चलाए? It doesn't make sense, right? Granted, it is not the perfect example. In real life, you will probably create a prototype of your car first. But for the sake of this discussion, let's go ahead with this example because it will still make the point. So let's say you have built the survey. Step number 2 is to measure, right? Which means to gather data around your hypothesis. In which case, what you will do is you will circulate that survey and get feedback from 100, 200, 300, 1000, whatever statistically significant number of customers that you want. And you will ask them very specific questions around your hypothesis. For example, what is the most important thing you look for in a car? What is your view about self-driving cars? What is the price range you are willing to pay for a car? So these are the kind of questions your survey will cover. These are the kind of data or data points that your measure step will give you. And equipped with all of this information, you will go to step number 3, which is learn. And like we already mentioned, one of two things can happen. If your hypothesis worked, you keep what you have built. Your idea or your hypothesis is valid, and you continue to actually build a real car. If not, at least you know what does not work. At least you know what the customer wants and does not want. So you can rethink your hypothesis and build again. So in this case, we already know that our hypothesis has failed. It turns out that the Indian consumer does not want a fast, self-driving, quickly charging electric car. But what we learned is that they want an affordable, long-range, high-mileage electric car. And that is a very valuable learning. Imagine you got to know about this even without building a single car. You just had to create a survey which was probably free of cost. And then you repeat the cycle. So with your renewed hypothesis and with customer validation, you go back to the first step of the loop, which is build, and you start building your first prototype for a car that is affordable, long range, and high mileage. So do you see how we course corrected? Do you see how we are able to build what the customer actually wants and not wasting any time, money, or effort on building something that the customer does not want? So what did we do differently in this approach? In our older approach, we first built a car, we advertised it, and then we sought customer feedback. But in the lean startup approach, before even starting to build a car, we are validating our hypothesis with customers. Earlier, we found out that our idea is not working, but we found out too late after we had already launched the car and advertised it. In the lean startup approach, we found out immediately that our idea may not work. We wasted plenty of time, effort, and money. But with the lean startup approach, we avoided all of that wastage. And to even find out what does our customer really want, our older approach, it took us too long to realize it. We realized it only after we had already built a failed car. But in the lean startup approach, very early on, we realized what does the customer want, so we can focus on building the right kind of product. Make sense? In summary, this is what the lean startup method is. It focuses on eliminating wasteful practices. Now we know what wasteful practices means. It means building a car without knowing what the customer wants, which will eventually go to waste. And increasing value producing activities. So if the customer wants an affordable car, and if I build an affordable car, that is value producing, that is benefiting everyone. It asks that you focus on customer feedback and don't build products or services that no one wants. And that you should deploy the build, measure, learn feedback loop to test hypothesis very quickly and cheaply. Right? So if you again look at the example, we did not even build a car. We barely spent any money, but we still learned a lot about what our customers want. So again, I'll pause for a minute. I'll just do a quick recap of what we've covered so far. We've understood the basics of the lean startup approach. We have looked at the build, measure, learn feedback loop, and we have compared an example to understand the difference between the old approach and the lean startup approach. Does anyone have any questions?
I think the lean startup is always revolving around the customer feedback, right, sir?
Yes, that's absolutely right.
Yeah. So, if somebody is starting to, means thinking of being a lean startup, who is going to help for this preparing the customer feedback or methodological approach to the customer feedback? That can be because everybody is not going to be acquainted with the customer feedback and everything, or the investigator or the startup founder who is going to do it, they are responsible for the whole customer feedback methodology.
Correct. So, great question, and I'll clarify. So to start with, right, at the very beginning of a startup journey, when it is just the startup founders and no one else, the startup founders have to do it themselves. So even from my own personal experience at Work India, we used to go out on the ground. We used to stand outside Andheri station. We used to go to shopping malls and talk to potential customers of our app and understand from them whether something like this will work for them or not. We would show them our app and get feedback from them. Are they liking it? Are they understanding it or not? We would do it firsthand ourselves, right? And that is very, very important because the startup founder is the one who sets the vision for the organization, who decides the path for the entire organization of where it is headed, what it should build, and how it should build it. So if the startup founder himself or herself does not have a very strong understanding of the customer and what they want, then that is a major blind spot. It will lead to incorrect decision making in the future, right? So to summarize my answer, in short, the responsibility is on the startup founders themselves, especially at the start of the journey, to do this customer feedback or customer interaction activity. They have to do it themselves. What kind of questions to ask, what is relevant, what is the best methodology to get feedback is perhaps something that they will have to equip themselves with or research about. And these kind of information is very easily available on the internet as well. It's not something that you need to formally get trained for. Some basic common sense questions will also work when you're interacting with potential customers. But it's very, very important that that customer feedback activity is done by the startup founders themselves initially. Over time, as an organization becomes very large and the startup founders' responsibilities grow and evolve, there can be a separate customer insights team, which is very common in a lot of good organizations nowadays. That team's responsibility is to, on a regular basis, interact with customers and get feedback from them. But that comes very later in the stage. In an early stage start of a journey of an organization, the startup founders have to do it themselves. Does that answer your question? Hello, I hope I was audible. Can someone else confirm if I was audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible. Moving to the next question.
Yes.
So can a lean startup survive with the competition in market?
So is that Apeksha? I think your voice is breaking up a lot. Can you come again, please?
Uh, yes, sir. Sure, sir. The next question: can a lean startup survive competition in market?
For sure, 100%. So if any one of you have heard of Dropbox, the file sharing application, Dropbox is a classic example of a lean startup. They had started out exactly following the process and methodology of lean startup, and we know where today Dropbox is. It's a very successful organization making a lot of revenues. Um, there was another shoe brand in US called Zappos, I think. It was one of the first dedicated shoe selling websites in US, which became very popular over time. That was again an example of a lean startup. If you have heard of an organization called Craigslist, so it is a listing website similar to Quicker or OLX that exists in the US. At one point, especially in the 1990s and early 2000s, it was a very, very popular website and very successful. And that too had followed the principles of lean startup. So to answer your question, most definitely lean startup methodology is equipped to tackle market competition.
Master. The next question is what if after survey we realize that we do not have sufficient resources to provide market fit?
Sorry.
Do I repeat, sir?
So I'll repeat the question. You said if after the survey we realize that even to reach product market fit, we don't have enough resources. What do we do in that case? Was that your question?
Correct, sir. Yes, sir. Correct.
Got it. So there are various ways to deal with a situation like that, right? Typically, startup founders are able to find a way to get to product market fit even before needing resources or external funding or anything of that sort. But that's not always true. So in that case, what happens, and from real life experience, what I can tell you is what companies typically do is they look for external funding. In that case, they look for resources or they raise funding from external sources like investors, venture capital funds, banks, etc. Right? And in that case, it entirely depends on how you are able to sell your idea to that potential investor. Right? Because remember, in that case, you don't even have a product market fit yet. You just have an idea. Right? So it entirely depends on your ability to sell your idea to a potential investor, make them see the big dream and the big potential in your idea. And if they are ready to bet on your idea, then they will, give you the resources and invest money in your startup. And then you use that money to reach product market fit. Is the typical way people solve that problem if your product market fit requires a lot of resources. Does that answer your question?
No, sir.
Sorry, someone said no. So my question was, does that answer your question or do I need to clarify further?
Sir, we don't have any more question. We can go ahead with.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Great. So I'll move on. We'll cover quickly the last section of the presentation, which is around minimum viable product, building it. How exactly do we go about it, right? And we have understood so far that in the build, measure, and learn feedback loop, MVP is a critical component. And to reiterate, what is an MVP? It is just the smallest, simplest possible version of your final product that allows you to test your hypothesis. As the name suggests, viable means just enough to survive. So it is actually far from your final product. It is very basic and bare bones, right? We'll understand in more detail how is an MVP different from a final product. So an MVP is the version of your product that has just enough features to stay viable. But a final product is a refined final version with all the features working as expected, right? The, the MVP typically has only core functionality of your product. Your final product may have additional features and add-ons, etc. as well. The purpose of your MVP is just to validate ideas and get initial customer feedback. But the purpose of your final product is to actually solve user problems and generate revenue for the business. An MVP is quickly built, typically in 1 or 2 weeks. The final product that you see will take years of iterations. An MVP will be cheap and low effort to build, but a final product will relatively cost much higher and will take a lot of time and effort. Right? So now that the difference between an MVP and the final product is very clear, right? Let's talk about how do you actually build a minimum viable product. When you are doing that first iteration, when you are first going out and talking to your customers, right? Essentially, an MVP is built the same way that you built your final product, but with less resources and less effort, right? So for example, if you're building a website, your final product is going to be a website like Flipkart. Your MVP can be a very basic version of the website. It need not have all the, fancy stuff and functionality, or it need not even be very good looking to start with. It should just help you get feedback. That's the objective, right? Similarly, if it's a mobile application, your MVP can be a very basic app, but at times your MVP can be very different from your final product as well. And that's also fine. It could be a video, it could be a presentation, it could be a demo, it could be an illustration, a survey form, whatever it is. The specific format of your MVP does not matter. What matters is that it is helping you gather customer feedback and validate your hypothesis. Right? So I'll show you an example of Dropbox original MVP video. So this is the actual video that the founders had made when they came up with the idea of Dropbox, and this is what they had shown to their initial customers, validated their idea, and even shown to initial investors. Right? I'll try to play this video. I don't know if the audio will be audible to everyone or not. Even if not, the idea is to see how
you've been there.
The video looks.
Buy lunch and realize your wallet is in your other pants. Or maybe you left your keys at home.
So I just paused the video. Can anyone confirm if the audio was audible?
Yes, sir, it is audible.
Okay, great. So I'll just play the video. It's only 2 minutes long.
The problem is organization. You need one place for everything, like a magic pocket. Putting something in the magic pocket means it's always there, no matter what you wear or where you are. The same thing is true for computers. If you have more than one, keeping track of all of your files can be a pain. Solving this problem is one of the big ideas behind Dropbox. It's like a magic pocket, a single, secure place for all of your stuff. Let's meet Josh, who is preparing for a big trip to Africa. Right now, all of his trip info is spread across his laptop, desktop, and phone. He needs to consolidate it all and is tired of having to email files to himself or move them around with a USB drive. Then he found Dropbox, which creates a new kind of folder on his computers. These folders work hard to be exactly alike, even across Macs and PCs. By adding his itinerary to his laptop Dropbox, he can be sure the same file will show up in his desktop Dropbox and even on his phone. The same thing happens when he saves a document in a Dropbox folder. The document gets updated across all of his Dropboxes. But it's not just his computers. The Dropbox website also works to be exactly like his other Dropboxes. Anything he puts in Dropbox is available on the website automatically. This way, if his Jeep takes a dive and his computer is ruined, he can still get to his files on the Dropbox website, where they're always backed up. As it turns out, Josh's Safari was a success, and his laptop made it home with lots of videos and photos to share. Instead of emailing everything, he just shared a Dropbox folder with his mom, so she could get copies of photos she wants to frame. Because it worked so well for travel, Josh made Dropbox the home for all of his stuff, so it's accessible anytime, wherever he goes. Whether you're traveling the world, running a business, or simply organizing your life, Dropbox means you can stop worrying about managing files and backups and get on with your next adventure. You can download Dropbox now at getdropbox.com.
Was the whole video audible?
Yes, sir, it was audible and easily understandable also.
Okay, perfect. So you see how simple yet clear and easy to understand this video was, and it looks very different from what the Dropbox product is today, right? The Dropbox product today is a website, is an app, is a desktop app. It's 100 different things, right? It's a very mature product today. But when this MVP video had come out, they did not even make a website. They did not even build the product that they are talking about. They only made a video, if you think about it, right? But it still was useful enough to get feedback on whether this idea even makes sense or not. Is this something that people will like or not? So based on this, I'll just summarize some of the guidelines for building a MVP, right? The first point is don't aim for perfection, right? And you can see the video, right, that Dropbox had created. It is far from perfect, right? The editing is choppy. The hand drawings are very so-called amateur or unprofessional, but it doesn't matter. It gets the idea across. That's what matters, right? So don't aim for perfection. Aim for simplicity and find the fastest way to start the learning process. When in doubt, simplify. So if you have two possible solutions to build the MVP or two possible approaches, pick the more simpler approach always. And focus on just one customer to start with. How is their experience, right? Later on in the future, your business might have thousands of customers that you might have to worry about. But today, when you're starting, just focus on the first customer. How will you make him understand your product, or how will you make her understand the value of your product? Pay attention to and document customer feedback and data very closely, because the MVP is of no use if you're not recording the data and feedback in a proper manner. Because like we've already established, the whole idea of the MVP is to learn about customer preferences, is to understand customer feedback, and hence properly documenting it and recording it so that you can study it later on, or you can learn from it, draw insights from it, is very, very important. In summary, this is what a minimum viable product is. It is a very basic version of your final product or service to test your hypothesis and get customer validation. It should be cheap, simple, low effort and quick to build. It can take any form, like we have seen the Dropbox example. It can be a website, app, video, presentation, or some prototype version of your product. It doesn't matter. Over time, you will refine your MVP and turn it into the final product. So we covered the last, 1/3 of the presentation, which is around MVP. How is it different from a final product? How do you build an MVP? What are the guidelines to keep in mind, right, when you're starting up? And this is especially important because oftentimes startup, founders or enthusiasts get paralyzed by fear or the uncertainty. They feel afraid or they don't know how to proceed, right? So it really helps to build something like an MVP because it is very low effort, it is very simple, it does not become overwhelming, and it ensures you keep making progress, right? So I'll again pause here. I think this is kind of the end of my presentation as well. If anyone has any questions on any part of the presentation, happy to answer.
This is Dr. Niharika.
Yes,
I
please.
think this is an excellent presentation we have ever had till now. It is so simple and methodologically presented. In between the questions and answer has been cleared like anything. So, being behalf of the IIC members, I congratulate you, sir, to be present with us and deliver such a nice session, which actually helped us to discover very much alien type words like minimal viable product and lean startup, and which is not been very much connected to the curriculum for the students, or rather I can tell the faculties also. So this is a very nice attempt, sir, and thank you so much, sir, for being over in the podium or with us, and make us understand this very, very difficult thing which is far away from dentistry and the regular dentistry. So thank you so much, sir, for on the behalf of IIC, that Institution Innovation Council, and I hope that we are going to meet soon and have an offline session also. Thank you, sir.
Sure enough. Thank you for your kind words. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. It was a pleasure for hosting all of you. I guess it's time to say goodbye. Just one thing I will leave you with
Thank you,
is
sir.
feel free to reach out to me for any future help or guidance, because concepts like these are not something that you are able to assimilate overnight. If anyone strongly feels about these topics and want to discuss with me, feel free to reach out. The coordinators will have my contact details available. Thank you for your time, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for this interesting session on examples. I'm sure we are all motivated for having a vision to learn lean startups. Thank you so much.
Likewise. Thank you, everyone. Bye bye.
Sir, we are going to mail you your attendance certificate and the appreciation certificate. Now, Sardul, can you just share the certificate to sir? Right now, we can screen it.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this. I can see it on the screen.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody, for the participation in a short notice. And thank you so much, sir, once again for this excellent presentation.
Likewise. Thank you for your time and thanks for the opportunity.
So, okay, now Yeah. We can, everybody, every participant, please put on your video on so that we can click the photograph or screenshot of it.